Happy Tuesday, right? Right, Bruce the cat. It is Tuesday. Tuesday, and you can't see Bruce. He's just off screen. Someday I'm going to get a cat cam because my cat is basically constantly right there because actually my bed is right here. And he's normally lazing about. You may have heard him off and on coughing or wheezing, which he unfortunately does now and again. He's getting up there in age, but he's in mostly good health, and knock on wood, he's got a lot of years left in him. Happy Tuesday. This actually came apart by chance, really. I got a bunch of stuff on my backlog that I need to get to, I want to get to. One of those is some stuff that Free League was kind enough to send me. They, of course, get no say over anything I say, and I do this all live, having not read it, so I don't know that I could even give them what they want if they'd even wanted some kind of control over the content. They have none, but I do put it up as promotional since they sent it to me. Anyhow, Free League's been nice enough to send me a bunch of stuff, one of which was some supplements for some of their various role-playing games, one of which was this one we're going to talk about today, which is the One Ring Strider mode, which is a supplement that, at least as far as the description goes, is for solo play in Middle-earth, which seems really cool. It's not a huge supplement, and I think it's on sale right now. If you follow the link over to Drive-Thru, the Drive-Thru is running some kind of, I think they're calling it their Christmas in July sale. A bunch of stuff's on sale, including this one. I believe regular price is somewhere around the $5 range, and with the sale, I think it's down to, I don't know the exact numbers. I think $2.50 or something like that for this. I don't have any particular show notes, except for I did put out yesterday, and you can find it in a bunch of places if you follow me or check in me in various places on the interwebs. I put out a free monster. It's on my Patreon page, Patreon/Hexed Press. And I think I posted links on my Twitter and on Facebook and in the community tab of YouTube if you're watching YouTube on the webs. Just a little monster I made up. I want to do more. If you've seen, I've posted a bunch of Mid-Journey stuff, and I love creating art, creating, in quotes, I suppose, art with Mid-Journey. But I don't want that to be it. Just, oh yeah, here's a bunch of images and that's it. So I'm trying now to, I would say transition, but start to look at some of these pieces that are great inspiration and see, well, what can I do with them? Is there anything kind of gameable, useful I could do with that? And so this is the first one of those that I've put out. I don't even remember what my original prompt was, but I ended up with this kind of weird rhinoceros-y thing. So I threw it out there, take it, enjoy it. It actually took a lot more work than I was anticipating, because it's got a bunch of tables in there that are about and Richard Smithson, hey Richard, says the Horde Eater is great. Good. Glad you read it. Glad you enjoyed it. It has some different elements because I break it out in terms of age, kind of not how sort of powerful they are. They have some different things going on. It ended up being more work than I anticipated when I just made it up, because I kept kind of coming up with things. Oh, they eat treasure, and oh, okay, well, they have gems get embedded in their skin, and there's a few more when they age, and then, well, what kind of effects do those have? And I even put, because I know people had mentioned that they like, I'm not a crafter per se, but I appreciate that people like, so I even put, well, what could you do with these gems if you're able to pry them off their skins, kind of thing. So it got me down a couple rabbit holes of sort of going through that, but it was a fun exercise. Oh, Richard says, we just seen it a week ago. It's as it is, the dungeon has a giant deadly slug. Yeah, I think what I like about this, and I sent it to Daniel over Bandits Keep, and he replied was, dragons must hate those things. And I thought, yeah, that's probably a good point, because these things eat loot, they eat treasure, and yes, if they were to happen upon some great dragon's horde, if the dragon was away for some reason, then yeah, they could do a lot of damage to a horde. I'm hoping it'll lead to some cool adventure ideas if you use it, because one of the things that again led down a little mini rabbit hole was that they're very slow digestive animals. I was taking my cue from Jaws, if you remember the original movie Jaws, and I'm going to spoil it, 1976, so I hope that's all right. Richard Dreyfuss talks about how their digestive systems are slow, so if they go cut open the shark, they'll see whatever it ate, and they could pull things out. And I thought, oh, well, that's an interesting idea. What if, as an adventure hook, one of these Horde Eaters came through, ate something, and it's really important. They're kind of animals, so they don't really know or care. You have there's some dice to roll, but you could probably make it part of the story. So much time to track down this particular individual before it has digested whatever special thing that you need that's sitting in its belly. So check it out, enjoy it. But before further ado, oh wait, hold on. First of all, Terrence says dragons raise them in secret to sick on their rivals. Yeah, they could. You can come up with lots of things, or who might employ them if you could train them to go out and search out different treasures. I didn't specifically call out those kinds of things, but I tried to hint at them with the fact that they can sense portals, planar portals. They have a weird ability to sense planar portals. They could possibly, you could find some different ways to think about these things if you wanted to. All right, enough about that. Let us salad off to the wild. There we go. This is Strider mode, and I feel okay with some diversions because this book is not super long. Now, hopefully I haven't dug myself a hole in terms of now it's going to take a long time, and I've wasted time talking about things not particularly germane, but there it is. Also, I did pull out my One Ring in case we need to reference it, because this is going to be, because Strider mode is specifically going to give us rules for solo role playing. So if we have anything we need to, we want to clarify. I've got the big book. I didn't want to have multiple PDFs open on the stream, but I've got the book in hand. Face the wilds alone. Here's one of the wandering folk, rangers we call them. He seldom talks, not but what he can tell a rare tale when he has the mind. He disappears for a month or a year, and then he pops up again. What his name is, I've never heard, but he's known around here as Strider. Yes. So I'm in. I'm already in. Just give me that quote. I'm in. And one of the things I meant to mention before is, so this is going to be a read through of the rules, seeing what we could see, discussion, what we can take from it. This is probably something that I think it's solo. It might be feasible too, that we can play some on stream. I can do some streams where maybe we communally play through a scenario. We'll see if this gives us a scenario that we could maybe run through at some point. I cannot imagine we'll get through that in the stream, but we'll see maybe for the future. And then definitely, let me know in the comments and in the chat and elsewhere if that's something you'd be interested in, is seeing an actual playthrough, because most of the times I don't get to actually play through a lot of the stuff. This is one, because it's solo, I can feasibly do. So let me know if that's something that you'd like to see. From the moment we meet Aragorn in The Lord of the Rings, we feel drawn to his hard-bitten stoicism and uncanny survivability. Who is this dark, hooded figure subsisting on the edges of civilization, living in harmony with the shadowed wilds? And on what sorts of adventures does he embark? With Strider mode for the One Ring, the players can set out on solo journeys in the vein of Aragorn's missions across Middle-earth, facing danger and darkness with only steel, cunning, and hope as companions. I'm just having a little bit of, I've got water, but I'm going to try to finish off my pink lemonade spinner first for the working man. It's interesting here. They I guess it's just, part of it makes me a little bit sad, though. It's not their fault. I'm sure it makes sense in terms of reaching the wider audience that they speak to movie Aragorn. And I love Viggo and Strider, but as Strider. But I would have rather maybe they referenced book Strider. And then I believe it's in the appendices of Return of the King. If you have the books, it gets into a little bit of Strider's wanderings, I think. Or you might have to go into some of the other books. But there's some interesting kind of backstory that was never, I don't want to say, yeah, backstory, I guess the right word. That's never really developed, but it's hinted here and there about Strider taking all these different identities and moving around Middle-earth. I think, for example, that there was someone, he was actually in Minas Tirith working for, it might have been for, I don't know if it was for Denethor or not Denethor. I forget whoever the steward of Gondor, but maybe even an earlier steward, not Boromir's father, but an earlier steward. Kind of, he was a heroic figure working in Minas Tirith for a while and then left. He went around and did lots of stuff, and that's not even including his wanderings, in the actual Lord of the Rings story. What is Strider mode? Strider mode presents additional and modified rules to facilitate solo play in the One Ring, as well as guidelines and tips for solo players, and a selection of random tables to help incite and inspire your lone wanderings across Middle-earth. As with standard play in the One Ring, you play the game and interact with the world from the perspective of your character. You don't need to talk out loud, although you can, nor are you writing the equivalent of a novel, though the occasional written note can help keep you on track. Instead, you envision the world, the figures, and foes you encounter, and your character's actions. The rules of the One Ring help resolve those actions. When you need additional guidance or inspiration for how the world responds to you, or what you encounter in your journeys across Middle-earth, Strider Mode steps in to lend a hand. Okay. Then we have a section below on what is solo role-playing. Do we really need to read all of that? I'm going to say no. I think we understand what solo role-playing is. But if you need to, just understand that you can crack open this booklet and get a little primer on solo mode. It's kind of an interesting to put in there because you imagine if you're buying the supplement, you must already have some concept of solo mode. Otherwise, why are you buying this? It's not like in, I don't know, a role-playing game. I feel like in a basic role-playing game book, especially one that's mass market, you don't know who's picking it up. You don't know. It could be someone's grandmother whose grandson gave them a thing of like, I want a role-playing game. So they go to the bookstore and they're flipping open a book and they want to know, like, I don't know, they don't know what the heck's a role-playing game. So they want to look, and so you put a little thing in the beginning and you're kind of appealing to the buyer as someone who may or may not actually be playing it, but oh, here's a role-playing game. And so, someone's grandmother could read it, or, you've heard, I'm interested in it, but I don't know what it is. But I think for something that's this specific, as in solo rules, that you would think folks would get, like, oh yeah, I'm buying this to do solo role-playing. I know what solo role-playing is. However, it is there if you need it. Richard Smithson asks, how useful is Strider Mode if you don't have the core rules, the tables, and advice? Well, we shall see, Richard, because I have no idea. I mean, I'm always in it for stuff that we can pull out and use for other things, and this book is $2.50 for however many pages it is. Right now, being on sale, I think it's normally around $5. It's on sale right now. There's a whole big sale going on drive-through. This is one. So we'll see. We'll hopefully we'll get through and maybe we'll be able to answer the question. If you don't intend to use the One Ring specifically, or you only want to use it, is Strider Mode enough? I'm going to say that probably not. I mean, not as a system in itself. I'm going to say I doubt that this will cover everything that you could play a game of the One Ring Strider Mode with just this and without the One Ring. However, there might be stuff in here if you've got your own homebrew system or you have some other solo system that you'd like to supplement. This may be enough in here to give you ideas and additional tables and whatnot to use in some kind of other system. That's my guess, but we'll see how it all lays out as we go through. How it works. Strider Mode is supplementary to the One Ring. The core rules are required for solo play, and familiarity with those rules is assumed. Though in practice, Strider Mode differs little from the core experience of the One Ring, there are some distinctions that facilitate the solo experience and help drive the narrative without a lore master at the helm. Lore master is their word for your referee, GM, what have you. This supplement provides options and tools to help guide your solo adventures in Third Age. Basic philosophy. When you play the One Ring in Strider Mode, you guide your player hero as they undertake a quest. Your story can be focused on missions assigned by a patron, or on personal goals or problems which compel your character to abandon the comforts of home and hearth. As a solo player, you imagine those adventures and take action from the perspective of your player hero, but you also interpret the consequences of those actions, introduce encounters, and portray other aspects of the world. You essentially act as both the player hero and the lore master, using your intuition and the tools in the supplement to retain the surprises, challenges, and opportunities that make role-playing as a character so rewarding. All right. So there we get the basic thing. I just need to... Oh, my chair is not quite how I want it. And I don't... It's bugging me a little bit. Let's see. Core Strider Mode tables. 3 new tables represent... Let me start over. 3 new tables presented in this supplement are key to playing the One Ring in Strider Mode. First, we've got the Telling table. Helps answer simple questions about locations, people, creatures, and events. Use this table when you would normally ask the lore master a yes/no/maybe question like, is there a light in this passage, or is there a herb master in this village? The lore table, page 11, I don't know why I gave the page number, it's not really useful on the stream, helps inspire answers to more complex, open-ended questions or reveal new events and situations. Use this table when you would normally ask the lore master for details about the world around you, such as, who do I see coming up the road? Or, what do I find in the troll's lair? Then finally, the fortune and ill fortune tables offer prompts for narrative outcomes when I forget which, I think these are the bad, is that the good or bad ones? I forget exactly what those symbols mean if you're using the feat die. So immediately we can see, to answer your question in somewhat a little bit, Richard Smithson, I feel like these three tables, or I think that these three tables could probably be useful outside of this specific Strider mode. In other words, you could probably pull those out to use as kind of your Oracle tables. There's a lot of, if you do search online, I think I've covered a couple on my channel. A lot of folks like to use Oracle tables. I like to use them too, even though I'm the GM. It's handy for answering questions that you may not know the answer to, or you just want to get some kind of outside influence on. You can ask questions, give it things, get back prompts and kind of interesting responses that you can use to drive whatever the fiction is. And it looks like we're going to see a couple of these tables. There are versions of them in the books. Now they're going to have somewhat the one ring mechanics, such as the special symbols on the dice, but you could probably turn those into, because I think their dice are, I forget what, and I could have brought out the starter set that has those dice. I forget what, if they're 6-sided dice, something different, but you could, essentially turn those into your 1 and 6 on a die or whatever it is, if you wanted to pull it out and use it in ye old OSR or other game. Okay, this supplement also includes other tables to help resolve more specific situations and questions. And then we see later on for a collected set of Strider mode tables. Adventuring phase. Much like the core experience of the One Ring, the flow of play is broken up into various phases, chief of which is the adventuring phase. This experience differs slightly in Strider mode. You can find these expanded and modified rules later on, but the main differences are as follows. No roles are assigned during journeys. Instead, the solo player hero reacts to situations as they arise, testing their skills against hazards and obstacles. An expanded journey events table provides a deeper and more varied experience for the solo player, offering just enough detail to help you envision the people, places, and foes in your path. And there's a new combat stance, the skirmish stance. Provides the lone player hero an opportunity to keep foes at a distance, staying one step ahead of the shadow. And then for the fellowship phase, little differs from the core rules in Strider mode's fellowship phase, during which your lone player hero rests, recuperates, and undertakes downtime activities to heal, gather rumors, or commune with their patron. And we got some guidelines that'll be later on. We have a box text here on cooperative play. This supplement is geared for solo play, but can also be used for play with 2 or more players in a small company without the aid of a lore master. When you're playing in a group without a lore master, the normal conversation you would have with other players is expanded to include the details of the world you inhabit. When a question or situation arises which would normally be resolved or depicted by the lore master, the group can collaborate to decide what happens, or use tools such as the telling table and lore table to help come up with an answer. With cooperative play, it's imperative that players share the narrative spotlight, allowing each participant to take the lead at times in envisioning the world around the player heroes. Stray from allowing one player to become the de facto lore master and take turns if necessary to foster a collaborative experience. Well, that's cool. So if you wanted to play kind of a GM-less game with a little group, you could do that. Your adventurer. When you begin a Strider mode campaign, create a single player hero much like you would in a traditional campaign guided by a lore master. All player hero cultures and callings are available to you, and there are only slight considerations for virtues as noted below. When creating your solo character, consider the kinds of stories you want to tell and the themes you want to explore. Messenger, Treasure Hunter, and Warden are callings well suited to the Strider mode experience, but any calling works. So basically, you can create your character pretty much the same as you would before, with a couple of exceptions. And then there are, of course, going to be some roles that are better suited to solo play than others. You're obviously open to picking whatever, but they give you the hint that, hey, you're going to be playing someone who's going at it alone, maybe picking a class or a calling that really supports other players, other player characters, I should say, isn't going to be that great because there's nobody else to support. And this is not I think we're sitting here, this is not the type of game where you're going to have a bunch of hirelings with you. You're pretty much going to be out there, Strider, alone. Crafting your player hero. Do we need to read these things? Let's see. I think So for previous, I'm just going to go. I'm going to do these in kind of in brief because I don't know that it's super important, but because this is the most, I guess, it's very One Ring specific, and it's just I don't know. I don't find it all that intriguing. But for the previous experience section of your character, instead of having 10 points, you get 15 points to spend. Regarding safe havens, without a company at your side, the safe haven is a particularly important aspect of your player hero story. Let's see. It's there you find allies, friends, perhaps even family. Consider why your safe haven represents not only sanctuary for your player hero, but also home. A hearth always lit to guide you back from the wilds. And then the fellowship score. As a solo player, you have a fellowship score equal to 3 plus any additional bonuses from virtues, cultural blessings, and your patron. Your fellowship score, rather than representing the bonds between you and your company, instead signifies your connection to the communities you serve and the wilds you roam. A hope that cannot be diminished by the shadow. And then we have fellowship focus. When playing a solo player hero, you are not a member of a company and do not have a fellowship focus. You can ignore that part of character creation. And then for virtues, when selecting virtues, read the description, look for any company-specific benefits. Since you aren't traveling as part of a fellowship, those abilities won't factor into your story. So don't get abilities that say, hey, you can heal another player hero, whatever, because there's no other player heroes. So you want to pick the stuff that's going to be useful to you. I'm not going to read through that whole virtues section, but I think we get the drift. And now we get a new distinctive feature, Strider. Wandering the wilds of Middle-earth alone hardens the spirit and sharpens the senses as you are forced to remain ever watchful for perils in the periphery. Solo player heroes receive an extra distinctive feature, Strider. While journeying, the player hero is considered inspired on skill rolls. So you get a little extra juice for skill rolls since you don't have anybody else to rely on, which is cool. Your patron. Perhaps the most important choice for a lone player hero is their patron. A patron can provide the motive for an errand or quest and help tether your player hero to the larger world. Introducing a patron can serve a great way to kick off a campaign for a new character, and meeting with them during the fellowship phase offers an opportunity to report on your progress or accept a new task. In choosing your patron, pay close attention to their featured callings, as well as their agenda, which are both support your intended goals with solo games. Player heroes interested in undertaking missions against the Shadow, Gandalf and Gilraen present enticing options. Player heroes seeking fame and lost relics might find Bilbo or Balin more suitable. So you basically just want to pick the patron that's going to match up with your particular interest. I mean, I'm already, my mind is already going to, ooh, if I created a character and wanted to do this, what would I do? I think I'd want to go against the Shadow. I don't know. I kind of think in a game like this, sure, there's lots of games I could go treasure hunting in. Right, I could do treasure hunting in basically any solo hack of any particular OSR game. I could do a treasure hunter. I think if I'm playing the One Ring, I think I want to engage with the Shadow in some way. I think. I don't know. Let me know what you guys would want to play. If something springs to mind as I'm reading this of what you want your kind of character goal to be if you had a One Ring character, I'd be curious. Let's see. Patron quests. In the following tables, each starting patron is given a set of quests fitting their agendas. Use these to help inspire the nature of a patron-given quest as a starting adventure for your character or the next goal within a continuing campaign. To select a quest from a patron, pick one that interests you, roll one six-sided success die for a random result, or accept the missions in sequence starting with the first. Envision the details of the task as revealed by the patron, and consider the open questions posed by each. If the quest involves travel, identify the destination. If the destination is unknown to you and the patron, consider what you must do to locate your objective. If you ask the patron questions about the mission, you can simply imagine their answers as appropriate to the nature of the task, or use the telling table and lore table to help inspire their response. Leave room for aspects of the quest which are unknown to both you and your patron. So given with a lot of solo play, you're sort of balancing out I'm just going to kind of decide for myself with how much I'm going to engage the tables. And it's kind of up to you how you like to play, how much of that you want to do. Do you want to run everything through the telling table, or do you want to leave it up to, or do you want to just use the knowledge? Like, of course, if you go to Gandalf and say, Gandalf, where's Mount Doom? I'm not going to roll on the telling table to see if he knows it's in Mordor or if he thinks it's in the middle of Lothlorien. Of course, everybody knows it's in Mordor. He would. On the other hand, if I was asking for, does he know where Sauron is right now? I might roll on the table. I forget if this takes place. I think this takes place after The Hobbit. So you might know, well, he used to be a Dol Guldur, now he's gone. But maybe I would say, well, they might not know he's in Mount Doom. He's returned back to Mordor yet. So we could roll the dice to see where Gandalf thinks the Necromancer, aka Sauron, has fled to. And I think this is after. If somebody knows, I'm not going to look it up at the moment. But anyway, something like that. And kind of make your choices. Obviously, the more you involve the tables, the more stuff is going to be taken out of your hands for good or ill. I tend to think of it as being good, but of course you can always go too far in a random and then you start getting results that don't make sense. And then you might want to peel back if you don't want to just run with them. I like the idea of doing all the quests in order. That creates a little campaign. So for example, who shall I read? So I'm more interested in actually I'll read Balin. So we have Balin, son of Fundin, and their quests, you get 6, there's 6 of them. And I'm going to read down them in order, starting from the first one, which would be kind of what we would do if we were going to take them on, create a campaign from these 6 quests. The first one is Dark Whispers plague a dwarven territory. What nameless shadow lurks in the wilds? This broken artifact could be a potent weapon against the enemy. What is this item, and who wields the skill to reforge it? The dwarven ruins hold great secrets and weapons against the enemy. What is the nature of these ruins, and what treasures do they hold? A powerful comrade has fallen in battle against the enemy. Who are they, and what did they carry vital to our survival? And then a dwarven stronghold now lies with the enemy. Who leads these foul creatures, and how have they defiled our sacred site? And finally, a powerful lieutenant of the enemy grows in power. Who is this shadowy figure, and how have they amassed followers? So you can see here from these 6, they don't directly, but I guess what I was going to say is that I don't look at them and see just a really strong chain between them. I could see how you could create linkages from Dark Whispers to what nameless shadow lurks in the wilds, and then you do that one. Oh gosh, it's a Balrog. Oh my gosh, okay, a Balrog. But somebody else discovers there may be some broken artifact that could be a potent weapon against the Balrog. But you got to figure out what it is and where to get it. And then, you could make these linkages down so that you could turn these into a kind of a campaign, building off of the results of each one, leading into the other one. But they're also standalone enough that if you're rolling dice or doing them in some different order, or you're just picking one, that it doesn't feel like you're jumping in the middle of some kind of ongoing campaign. I think that does a nice job. They have enough vagueness to them, they're generic enough where you can just pick that and say, oh, this is just one thing that's happened. But I can also see how you could fairly simply take those 6, and if you're going to line them up, you could put a through line through them and see how each one kind of builds off the other one in developments. Let's see, what else? I don't want to necessarily read all of them. I'm curious in Gandalf's, because that was the one that I was interested in. Let's see what Gandalf the Grey's quests are like. So, okay, quest the first. The people need hope in these dark times. Where is this remote settlement? And what good news do you bring? Is that the Shire, Gandalf? Is that what you're talking about? But he already knows about the Shire, so I don't know. Carry word of the enemy's movements to our trusted ally. Who is this ally, and how can they aid us? A possible ally has made themselves known to us. Who is this ally? What must we do to earn their trust? Our vision is clouded, our path uncertain. We must capture a servant of the enemy. Who are they, and what do they know? News has reached us of a terrible weapon the enemy means to bear. What is this weapon, and who wields it? And the shadow has captured an ally. Who is this ally, and where are they imprisoned? So again, I think like Balin's ones, these are set up that they're generic enough and open enough that you could just play any one of them and just pick it and that goes. Or you could really look at these down the line from remote settlement to, oh, okay, and something we get from that maybe to an ally. Then there's a lot of these about the ally. Ooh, this is the ally. We find out who this ally is. We kind of know what they can do. But now we have to answer the question, what do we have to do to earn their trust? And then, so maybe we learn more about that. But then also, we got to figure out what the enemy's doing. We figure out what the enemy's doing, and it's some kind of terrible weapon. We got to find it. And now this ally that we were trying to get a hold of, the enemy has captured them. How do we get them out? Darren says, Gandalf looks like he just noticed he lost his car keys. He does have a little bit of a, kind of look. But is that Gandalf, or is that Círdan the shipwright? I guess, I suppose this doesn't seem very elfish. So yeah, I suppose we could say that that's Gandalf. Yeah, he does look like he's got this like little side, I don't know what you even call that, sort of draping what is that? Just some draping kind of lumpy fabric, maybe a little bit of a kind of the Middle Earth messenger bag. And yeah, he definitely got that one hand in there, like maybe he's trying to see, are my keys down there? Do I hear the jingle of keys? Damn it, did we ever know where Gandalf lives? We know where Ross Gabel is, where what's his name, Radagast the Brown lives. We of course know about Saruman in his tower, but I don't know if we ever get a sense of where Gandalf actually lives. And maybe Terrence, I feel like you might have just come on to something like Thunderbolt here. He doesn't ever go home because he lost the keys, and he doesn't have that. He doesn't have that magic. They lost the magic. Part of the Maiar abilities that they lost when they were turned into wizards was how to open doors. They can lock them behind them, as Gandalf does in Moria. Cool little side note: if you go back and read the books, they don't do this in the movies, which is unfortunate. Unfortunate, and I think it goes back to that thing with the Balrog, because I think part of the thing that people don't know the Balrog has made them into massive, huge beasts. But I think in the books, when you really read it, the actual Balrog's not that big, which doesn't really make him less scary. In some ways, I think it's almost more scary. But and I always wondered this. I never saw the story about this. Gandalf basically casts Hold Portal on a door in Khazad-dûm when they're trying to escape. They're in Moria. They're trying to, the first time they meet the Balrog, they run. They get to a door, and he basically holds this casting of Hold Portal to keep the door closed. And the Balrog basically breaks his spell and dispels it. And Gandalf is shaken by that because he doesn't know. I think at that point he doesn't know that it's a Balrog or something. But he never, they might, I don't know. I forget when it happens. I don't think he's sure it's a Balrog. I'm not sure. I'm going to have to go back and read that's part of the story again. But he's never felt that kind of power before. This thing just kind of comes up and is on the other side of the door and just, and dispels the spell. And then they keep running towards the bridge. It's kind of a neat moment. It really shows the power of the Balrog, but just in a different way instead of just being huge. Because in the movie, the size of that creature was never gonna, when they go down that, they have that little special effects sequence where they come out of that door and they go down the stairs, and the stairs are like really thin, and they break, and then the goblins are shooting at them, and then they kind of have to surf the falling stairway and jump. You look at the door they're coming through, the Balrog can't fit through there. You almost wonder why it's banging up against it, unless it's going to knock the whole wall down. It can't fit. But in the book, I think it could fit, and it was coming through that door, and Gandalf's just able to block it, but only for a moment before the Balrog dispels it. And I always read that wondering, I wonder if that's where they got the idea for those spells, or maybe those spells appear elsewhere, but pretty cool moment. Terrence says, Gandalf was a dirty drifter. Yeah, he really was. So I'm not going to read the rest of those patrons, but we get the drift, right? I'm going to move on to experience milestones. In the One Ring, experience points are earned according to the passage of your gameplay sessions. By default, each player earns 3 skill points and 3 adventure points at the end of every gaming session. If this works for the format of your Strider mode sessions, there's no need to adjust these rewards. But one advantage of solo pen and paper role-playing is flexibility. Your sessions might last for a few minutes or a few hours, which can make session-based rewards disconnected from events and achievements in your story. If you prefer to earn skill points untethered from the structure of specific sessions, you can instead mark the growth of your character through milestones. Milestones are key events, experiences, and accomplishments for your hero. When you achieve a milestone shown in the table below, gain the listed amount of skill points or adventure points. If more than one milestone applies to a scene or challenge, select only one. For example, if you defeat a band of orcs as part of a noteworthy encounter, you could take the milestone as either a noteworthy encounter or a dangerous combat, but not both. So no double dipping. Experience points are otherwise managed as per the standard One Ring rules. Your player hero earns a number of additional skill points equal to their wits rating during each Yule Fellowship phase. Experience points are spent on training and growth during the Fellowship phase. Terrence says he was already Gandalf the White, he just never did laundry. Yeah, just gray from dust and grime and dirt. I could see that. So really, when he goes back to Valinor, it's just to the dry cleaners. They're like, damn, Gandalf, you stank. And do some laundry. Gotta go back to his parents' house to do laundry. Yep, totally happened. All right, so the kind of milestones we have here. You accept a mission from a patron, you get an adventure point. Achieve a notable personal goal, you get an adventure point and a skill point. If you complete a patron's mission, you get another adventure point and a skill point. If you complete a meaningful journey, you get 2 skill points. If you face a noteworthy encounter during a journey, you get 1 skill point. If you reveal a significant location or discovery, you earn an adventure point. If you overcome a tricky obstacle, you get a skill point. If you participate in a council, you also get a skill point. If you survive a dangerous combat, you get an adventure point. Or if you face a revelation episode, you also get an adventure point. Raid LC says he was the realm's wandering weed and fireworks supplier. That's why everyone was happy to see him. Yep, except for the Law and Order types like Saruman, who are like, come on, man. The weed's for us, not for them. So I like this milestone system. I have to say, I have said several times, I'm not a big fan of milestones in 5th edition because of the way that they're very focused on doing what the GM wants to do. But I'm not anti-milestones if there's something like this. One, I kind of like these ideas that the milestones are incremental, that it's not just you get a level, but you can do things to gain either parts of a level, you know, like 30% or whatever, some amount of experience points, for example, or in this case, you're getting specific points, and presumably, I don't know how many points you get to spend, but you may not be able to just gain something every time you finish something, but it's really open-ended to you as the player to be able to say, ooh, here's all the stuff I can do to gain power through my character become more powerful. Here's what I want to do. As opposed to what tends to be in 5th edition is there's some narrative or some other thing that you're on, and really only the GM knows is going to tell you, oh, you've done enough. Like, that's the part I really don't like. In terms of this, I think it's fine. And I could definitely see pulling some of this out. And I've seen some supplements. I'm pretty sure it might have been on one of our roundup shows. We looked at something that had, oh, here's a bunch of stuff that you can do to kind of gain experience, which I think is great. Because I think diversifying it, especially if you want to run a game that's not dungeon and loot focused, you want to come up with alternative to sort of loot for XP that your players can do. And I think giving them a list of stuff that's kind of player facing that they can count on and they can make decisions about what they want to do is the way to go. On to the system. Action resolution. As a solo player, you must decide when rolls are necessary, a task that usually falls to the lore master. It might seem counterintuitive to challenge your own player hero success, but consider that each roll of the dice in the One Ring represents equal opportunity for triumph and despair. Roll when risk is involved, when the possibility of failure affects the narrative. For further guidance, see when to roll on page 16 of the One Ring core rules. In other words, if you start off and just, for example, you're playing a Hobbit in Bag End, you don't need to roll for going down to the village green. Did you get lost? No. Like, does something happen to you? No, nothing happens to you. Of course, if you're trying to do something that is riskier, then you want to roll, and this is solo play, so you're going to get to make that decision yourself. I think for the best experience, I mean, yeah, you might not. I know there's always a push and pull, especially when you're playing by yourself. You can kind of cheat because who's watching. But part of the whole gaminess of it, hey, you're playing a game, and part of that game is kind of getting into trouble and see if you can get out of it. So you don't want to avoid rolling all the time, but you don't want to make it silly. You're in the middle of Bree and 1,000 orcs attack. Like, well, where do those 1,000 orcs come from? That doesn't make any sense. You don't want to end up in that kind of spot. But at the same time, you shouldn't be skipping through the middle of Moria without a care in the world because you've decided yourself that it's going to be fine. Setting the target number using the alternative presented in the One Ring core rules, page 18. Okay. Solo players should set the target number by subtracting their attributes from 18 instead of 20. This will make your player hero more capable and self-reliant when they face the challenges of Middle-earth alone. That's good. Reading the feat die. When you are taking action and want to give the challenge additional focus in a dramatic moment, use a result that includes the Gandalf rune or the Eye of Sauron icon to represent circumstances and events beyond the control of your player hero. Rolling the Gandalf rune means a successful action was bolstered by fortune, such as an unexpected aid, advantageous terrain, or a foe's folly. To help inspire a random result, roll on the fortune table. Rolling a failure with the Sauron icon, the Eye of Sauron icon, means a failure was complicated by ill fortune, such as a broken weapon, difficult terrain, or enemy reinforcements. To help inspire a random result, roll on the ill fortune table. So if you were using like a D6 or a D20, you could figure out if you wanted to, your roll of 1, you could say, or one, basically either way. You could say on a roll of a d6 or a d20, basically, a roll of 1 would give you you'd be consider that an Eye of Sauron result, and a roll of 20, kind of critical success, or 6 would be your Gandalf result. And you could tweak those numbers, because I think in D6, if assuming it's a D6, and I'm pretty sure their dice are D6, but I'd have to go back and look at it again. You would that would be 16%. So then you would make it 5 or less, which would give you 15%, which is kind of close enough. And then on the opposite side, it would be 15 or more on the D20 to get, because on each side of a D20 is 5%. So you can figure it out that way. Also, I guess it'd be 20, 19, 18, right? So 17 or above, sorry, and then 3 or less, not 5 or less. That would be more. So basically 5%, each face of a 6-sided die is about 16 point whatever percent, or 15 something whatever percent, and then it's 5% on each die. So you can figure it out. My math is a little bit off there, but you get the drift. So you could definitely convert these to your regular dice if you needed to. And then let's see, the fortune table's the good stuff. I'm not going to go through all those results, but it's basically some extra goodness if you roll really well, and then if you roll really poorly, some bad stuff, extra bad stuff happens. And then there's also the skill special success table. You could gain insight, go quality, spend 1 success icon 2, and you could do some extra stuff. Gain insight, go quietly, make haste, widen influence, build advantage, or cancel a failure. Special success in Strider mode. When a successful action also produces 1 or more elvish symbols on your success die, this is a superior result. Unlike the whims of fortune and ill fortune, this outcome can be interpreted as a direct result of your character's preparedness and skills. If you want to detail the nature and benefits of a superior result for solo play, you can use the table above, which is an alternative to the special success table in the One Ring core rules. As with that version of the table, you can specify what your superior result means by spending your roll icons to trigger a number of special results. Choose one of the options listed for each of those results that you roll. That's cool. In combat, those icons are instead used to trigger special results based on the war gear of the attacker. And you can see the core book for more of that. Also, some cultural virtues provide specific benefits for special successes. If a result of a special success is already detailed by other rules or character ability, use that instead of the special success table. That was a mouthful. And then using risk levels. For Strider mode, it is recommended to use risk levels when visualizing and resolving a risky action. This will add more variety to the outcome of a failed action and aid you in resolving the consequences. So the risk levels, you can pick between standard, hazardous, and foolish, and then they give you some extra juice. The failed roll results in, for a standard, it's a simple failure or success with woe. If it's hazardous, it's failure with woe, and then if it's foolish, it's a disaster. And then we've got some examples. So basically, you kind of pick, well, what is the risk? And you can even ask about it, which is what it's basically saying in here. And you can use those to help manage the intensity of your adventure, right? As the tension rises, you might go from standard to hazardous to foolish. Or if then you succeed on something, you can go up and down. I forget that solo GM rule set. They had a similar concept. It was called chaos. You could raise or lower the chaos. If you raise the chaos, you were more likely to get kind of wilder results. Which it was just basically it was as if basically the forces against you were mounting, but then you could also, as you're doing stuff, you could decrease it. It was kind of a neat way of tweaking the numbers based on the flow of the action. If you're being harried, the result you start to get more. I think it was called chaos, but it might have been something else called that chaos enters into it, and then as you would succeed at things, you could bring that chaos back. I think this kind of works similarly. Here we go, the telling table. One of the most useful and versatile tools at a solo player's disposal is the telling table. Use the telling table when posing questions answerable by yes or no. This table helps resolve questions normally answered by a lore master, revealing details of the world and the intent or actions of other characters. If you are asking a question with results favorable and unfavorable from the perspective of your character, ask it in such a way that yes is the positive outcome. After posing your question, set the chance of a yes using the range shown in the telling table. Certain, likely, middling, doubtful, or unthinkable. If unsure, make it middling. Then roll one 12-sided feat die to learn the answer. So you're going to ask your question with the yes being the positive outcome. You're going to set the chance with the default being in the middle. Then you're going to roll the feat die, which is a 12-sided die, and then consult the telling table for your answer. And I guess maybe they're using 12-sided dice, which I guess makes sense because those same runes are on that die, so I'm guessing that's the die size. So now we've got that established. I forget the chance for each face of a 12-sided die, but you could look that up in any dice if you were curious. What's going on here? Nothing good. Oh, why Face ID always wants me. Okay. So the telling table, it's got chances, and then you roll the feat die, and then it's 1 or greater if it's certain. So basically, you're pretty much always going to get a yes. They'll presume, unless you get the Eye of Sauron, which I'm guessing that the Gandalf and the Eye of Sauron runes probably are only on the 1 and the 12, essentially. So it's right, 10. Yeah, because there's actually 10 numbers and then those 2 dice. So certain is going to be always, except for that 1 in 12 chance that you get a no. Likely is 4 or greater, middling 6 or greater, doubtful 8 or greater, unthinkable you need to roll a 10. 10 or the Gandalf rune. Trust your gut. You needn't roll on the telling table and or lore table each time you ask a question during your solo play. Oftentimes the answer will be obvious to you based on the narrative thus far, the context of the question, the nature of your player hero, and the Middle Earth they inhabit. The telling table is a tool for when you earnestly don't know, when you can't decide, or when the possibilities of yes, no, or something in between each present equal opportunities for fun. When in doubt, even with tools like the telling table and lore table at your disposal, trust your gut. Oftentimes your first instinct is the right one. Womp, womp, womp. There you go. And knowing is half the battle. So, speaking of the lore table, this is up next. Use the lore table to help reveal details when asking an open-ended question about a situation or event. The table includes 3 columns: action, aspect, and focus. You could roll on 1 column for a single word prompt, or 2 or more to construct a prompt phase. The lore table is particularly useful for generating patron quests or determining distinctive features for characters encountered on your journeys. To roll on the table, use 1 12-sided feat die to determine the section and 1 6-sided success die for the row. The lore master can answer questions such as, what is the nature of these woods? What mission does my patron have for me? What do I find within the ruins? Depending on the situation, the result might be taken literally or interpreted as an abstraction. Part of the fun of solo role-playing is deciding how these enigmatic riddles relate to your current situation. If the result doesn't fit or is hard to interpret within the context of the current situation, roll again or check adjacent rows for answers. So we get stuff like, let's see, I guess depending on what you roll on your feat die, different things, which we have actions, aspects, and focuses. So aspects would be for stuff like, what is the nature of these woods? And you get corrupted, cruel, deceptive, fell, ruined, treacherous, or active, ancient, bold, bright, broken, cheerless, so on and so forth. So this is another table that you could easily split out from this system. And there's one for, so basically this is a 12-sided, so we get 12 tables, each for each side of the 12-sided die. You would roll that die. In their case, remember they have the Sauron side is, Sauron rune is 1 face, Gandalf rune is another face, and then there are 10 numbers. So here we have the 2 runes, but basically you could just run this as 1 and then through 11 on the other page, and then come back to here to 12 for Gandalf. And there you go. You get all kinds of different stuff. Onto the Eye of Mordor. A lone player hero draws less attention than a full company, but may still catch the eye of the enemy. Use the optional eye awareness score as described in the One Ring rulebook to track your visibility to the enemy and the actions of dark forces in Middle-earth. Although these rules are optional, they are recommended for use with Strider mode as a means of making the campaign more dynamic and reinforcing the enemy and the minions of shadow as ever-present and cunning threats. So we could, okay, I'm going to kind of breeze through some of this. I like this idea, but I feel like, yeah, just in terms of, I'm cognizant of the time and everything, so I want to I don't feel like the details are super important in the sense of, what do they add? I think if you're interested in this, you can delve into it. And if I definitely come back and play it, which I think I'm going to, then I will probably engage with these with my character. But in terms of this general read through, I think it's good enough to know that they exist. You get a starting eye awareness. We can through when things happen, and eye awareness increases. Let's see. You reset the eye awareness values after fellowship phases, and then you have a hunt threshold. Hunt threshold for a lone player hero is the same as that for a company. Use the region table and the hunt modifiers table to set the threshold. And then you can have revelation episodes. When your eye awareness matches or exceeds the current hunt threshold, you must face a revelation episode. In Strider mode, a revelation episode represents the influence and actions of the enemy or other sinister or hateful powers. To determine the nature of the episode, roll on the revelation episode table, choose a result from the table, or imagine a threat which best represents the current situation. Some episodes might create an immediate danger or complication for your player hero. Others trigger dire events in the world, which the player or hero is, for now, unaware of, but which will cause future complications. If you set a revelation episode in motion outside the perception of your player hero, make note of it and consider how it may later reveal itself. Once you have triggered a revelation episode, reset your eye awareness to its starting value. And then you can get some revelations, might be internal strife or external threat, puts your safe haven in peril. Nature is corrupted and turns against you. Enemy minions pick up your trail. You are tempted by something greatly desired to the detriment of your mission. Conflict brews between allies, etc., etc. Let me just see. Where are we? So we're at page 15, and there's 28 pages. Oh, boy. Some of it is appendices. Okay, so into the adventuring phase. I'm going to be brief here. Remember, we get a new skirmish stance that's called, we get a new stance that's called the skirmish stance because you're fighting by yourself. So they want to give you some extra ways to be able to keep the enemy kind of at bay, since presumably if they close in on you, that would be bad. Let's see. Adversary actions. In Strider mode, the solo player finds himself in a unique position of controlling both their player heroes and the adversaries in their path. In combat, an adversary uses the weapon best suited to the situation, depending on the stance of the player hero. Multiple weapons apply. The adversary uses the one which gives them the biggest advantage or greatest chance of dealing damage. Sounds good. There's a little box text here on outnumbered, outmatched. Solo experience in the One Ring is often fraught with peril and never is more apparent than during combat. Alone, an adventurer can easily become overwhelmed by foes. Utilize tools like the skirmish stance and its associated task, gain ground to stay on the move. And when things look dire, don't hesitate to flee combat to live to fight another day. Oh, trust me, I would not hesitate to do that. And gain ground is part of that skirmish stance. Let's see. On a successful roll, the attacker gains a die on their next range attack, plus another die for each success. And that's, let's see, like the flavor text is combatants on the move can attempt to gain an advantageous position against their foes, ambushing enemies, or firing from an overlook. To do so, the acting player makes an athletics or scan roll as the main action for the round. Battling yourself. What is that? Okay, that wasn't me. Let's see. Councils. So we have some rules here on being in a council by yourself, which I'm going to gloss over. Just know that they are there. Councils are basically social encounters. Think the Council of Elrond, similar things. Then we have journeys and journey rolls, and we have a table of solo journey events. And remember, in the One Ring, you'll give different characters take on different tasks, essentially different roles, and they have to overcome obstacles depending on the roles. So you might have a navigator that's rolling to see if you're moving along the right trail. You might have kind of an Overwatch person that's looking out for danger, etc., etc. But in the solo mode, you're doing all this yourself. So you're going to take on all these tasks as opposed to splitting them up between the party. And we have some tables to help out with that, and a terrible misfortune table. Some more tables. Noteworthy encounters, making journeys come alive. then on to Fellowship phase. I'm just going to read the box text, the spiritual recovery for solo player heroes. As detailed in the One Ring core rulebook, the lore master would normally determine the number of shadow points to remove during the Fellowship phase. As a solo player, you instead decide how many shadow points to remove based on how your actions have impacted the fight against the encroaching shadow. If your actions have at least marginally interfered with the return of the shadow, recover 1 shadow point. If your deeds have actively hindered or damaged the enemy, remove 2 shadow points. If you have committed feats that would gain the attention of the Dark Lord himself, or at least one of his major servants, remove 3 shadow points. Basically, the more stuff you do, I think shadow points are kind of like not a corruption, but basically, I guess it's kind of like a corruption. And so you can, during the Fellowship phase is when your ability to remove them, and instead of having the referee, lore master, GM determine how many, we're doing that ourselves. Okay, well, that is the end. We have some appendices that have all the selected tables, which I always love. That is great. All your stuff in one place. And then we've got the One Ring core rulebook has other tables that we can use. And then we get the writers and everyone. So the lead writers, Sean Tompkin and Matt Click. And then other folks who were involved. Very nice. So what do I think about this? So I'm going to come back and I'm going to try to play this. Do some kind of solo run through. I'll do it on the channel. Obviously, you'll get notified. I'll do it. I'm not sure when it will happen, when it will make sense. I don't know. Maybe I'll do it if I have a chance to run a longer stream on a weekend, on an off weekend. Though those seem to be few and far between. So maybe I'll just stretch it out over a couple of weekly 1 hour kind of lunchtime streams. See if we can get through with it. I think on the surface, there's a lot here that's good. I think once we get into playing it, we'll be able to see more. Are there any weird gaps? Is there anything they didn't cover? I'm not super familiar with the One Ring, so it's definitely going to be something that I'm going to be referencing both this and the regular rule book when it comes time to running in solo. So I forget who it was. It was Richard Smithson that asked at the beginning of the stream if they felt like this would be useful, or could you use this to run it without actually having the One Ring? I think the answer is no. If you actually want to run the One Ring solo, you're going to need and want, I think, the One Ring core rulebook for that. Could you use this to run some other sort of solo system? To use it instead of an Oracle if you were already using a solo system, or you wanted to run, let's say, BX or something solo, and you wanted some way of mechanizing your Oracle, and by Oracle I mean though when you're asking questions to the non-existent lore master of, what's it down the hallway, or what's in these ruins, and that you're going to they call the Oracle, that whatever mechanic you're using to determine the answers for that. Could you use the tables in Strider mode as an Oracle for something else? I think you definitely could. You'd have to go back and I was struggling with remembering which dice or which sizes. So, but they're all basically your conventional dice sizes. You just want to remember what's what, and then remember that those different icons, the 2 critical failure in the Eye of Sauron, Eye of Sauron rune, and then the Gandalf rune for critical successes. So you'd want to remember, okay, if I'm using the D6 die, the 1 is Sauron, the 6 is Gandalf, or if it's the D12, the 1 is Sauron and the 12 is Gandalf, and so I could roll those dice and still make use of those results. But those tables will still work. It looks like they kind of have everything covered. It seems like it's a really simple system, and I think I do appreciate that it feels like for the most part you're playing the same game. Sometimes you get into a solo mode and things are kind of radically different than the game is. Something like Scarlet Heroes, which I haven't done on the channel, I don't think, but I appreciate it. But it really takes your character and turns them into kind of a superhero in order to put them in kind of a solo or 1 to 2 player campaign. Whereas I think with this, though, you do get a little kind of extra things. You get that extra distinctive feature of Strider. You get a couple extra points. You get the new combat stance. I think those are fairly easy too. Let's say if you had a character, you could probably temporarily give them Strider mode if you wanted to, or give them that Strider stance and a couple of things, and just send them off on a solo mission, and then still kind of be able to pull those back and then put them in the group. I think you're a much higher compatibility, I guess. You're almost completely compatible with your just regular the One Ring kind of hero, with a couple of exceptions, but I think are fairly easy to deal with, as opposed to if you're going down this path of playing the solo, and this character so vastly different or overpowered compared to a normal character, that just doesn't make sense. I think they did a nice job of acknowledging that to be playing this by yourself, we're gonna have to give you a little extra little things, but it's not gonna be so crazy that you couldn't see then pulling that character out and use them in a regular game and just saying, okay, you don't have stride or stance when you're playing in the full group, but you can have it when you're on your own. So, I think that's really good. I appreciate the art. It's very well done, well laid out. There's not a ton of like over the top artwork, but that's fine because I just want to get into it. It's a pretty small supplement. It's about less than 30 pages, but I think I would say it's worth the $3 or $5 depending for solo play. If you're someone who loves the One Ring and you're invested in it, I think this is a worthy addition. Everything's very well laid out. I didn't run across any issues or errors that I noticed. It'll be interesting to come back if and when I can do an actual solo play and see if anything rears its ugly head there. I always mention, or I try to always reinforce, sometimes when you're reading things, kind of review from reading, some things will seem good that when you're actually playing turn out to not be that great, and then some things that seem not that great when you read it actually turn into being something great. And sometimes we can't suss all that stuff out necessarily when we're reading. And I try to call like, ooh, I think this is going to be great, and ooh, I think this is going to be not so great. But the proof is in the pudding. So, but I think thumbs up from me pursuant to actually playing this, and it's on sale. So if you're interested in this stuff, go over and check it out. And links to drive-through are in the description. Other than that, that's all I've got. I'll make one more mention. Go check out my patron/Hexed Press. You can download that free monster Horde Eaters. I just put it out yesterday, so go grab it. It's free. It was fun. It was based on some Midjourney art that I came up with the other day. I'll be back. I should be back tomorrow and the rest of the week, I think, though might be a day. Is it tomorrow? I have another kind of conflict I'm going to have to work around, so I might have a weird streaming day tomorrow. I have to check. Next week, there'll be a couple of days at least where I won't be streaming since I have out-of-town family. Family visiting from out of town, and they require my presence. So if I stream, it'll be at odd hours, but I think I might just have to take those days off. Other than that, folks, have a great rest of your day, night. Whenever you end up watching or listening to this, if you feel like giving this a thumbs up on your way out, that would be awesome. If you feel like subscribing and you're not subscribed already, that would also be awesome. Otherwise, game on, everybody, and I'll talk to you later. Bye now.